Yo! Welcome back, everybody, to Networking with Nathaniel. I have a pretty good friend of mine at this point, Shane. I'm not sure exactly how we met, but we've intertwined paths over the past year plus. Shane is a returning guest here, and so I'm really appreciative of him coming back on. He's done a lot since we've chatted last time on networking with Nathaniel, and we're going to get into a lot of different things. We've been talking off, I don't know, off camera, off screen, whatever, before we started going live here. And there's a few things we're definitely going to dive into. I like to always start out with thank you for being here, man. How you
Thank
doing
you.
today?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you having me back on. I know that our first call was was very real, and I really appreciated that you brought that to the table. So thank you for having me back.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to me. I know I've come a long way since then, as have you. I think that there's still a lot of that just genuine kind of conversation. It is networking with Nathaniel for a reason, right? We're just here to have a conversation, kind of see what you're doing, how we can kind of fit into each other's realms, as well as anybody that's out there listening, how we can kind of find opportunities. That's what networking is about, like becoming friends and seeing what each other are working on, right? And so,
Yeah.
that's kind of how we. Like I said, I don't know how the heck we actually met in the first place, but we run in the same
Yeah.
circles.
Yeah, same circles. That's all I know. I think Carlin may have introduced us, and she's like, "Do you know this guy?" And it was pre Growth Co. and pre all that stuff. It was just like, "This guy is
Yeah.
hysterical," and that's how we.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And like, hey,
Yeah.
recommendation to come on. And that's
Yep.
actually something that Chuck last week had kind of advised. He learned from another podcast that he listens to, is like, towards the end of your episode, ask the guest that you have on, hey, who would be a good guest to bring on,
Mm,
and have them make a connection for you. And so I did
nice.
that, yeah, by accident with Carlin. So
That's
keep that
great.
in your mind, Shane. That's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
That's great. I love it.
you know, yeah. So we start kind of basically, as you're aware, is like, what are you working on, man? What's kind of keeping you busy right now?
Yeah. That's kind of a loaded question because it's a lot, but also not because it's building out a team. Um, it it's focusing on the team versus focusing on the deals, and so it's a very interesting position I'm in right now after partnering up with someone and then finding the people that do the best in what they do and have them do the things that I've been grinding and not moving forward on. So um, I partnered with someone about 3 months ago. Her name is Marley Tarbo. She's unbelievably phenomenal. That's who I would recommend, by the way, to bring on. Whether she'll
Okay.
do it or not, that's a different story. But I'm gonna nudge her a little bit for you.
Okay. Yeah.
She's phenomenal. We've teamed up. She's got a background in corporate, like a high end corporate, C-suite corporate ownership, basically, and
Okay.
running businesses at the COO level and the HR level and things like that. The the wonderful part about her is her last job title was a CPP, which means Chief People Person,
Okay.
which I
Cool.
thought was really beautiful,
Yeah.
because it's about the people, not just about human resources, right? Like you
Yeah.
hear HR and you're like, ugh, I don't want to talk to that person, but you hear Chief People Person, it's like, oh, this is different.
Yeah. I
Um,
like that person. Yeah.
so her background is in the businesses that she's been part of. She's got quite a stacked background, and she's done a lot of mergers and acquisitions with other businesses. So in the past 2.5 years, 3 years, she's done 5 different mergers and acquisitions with
Wow.
her company that she was just part of,
Okay.
and it's been really eye-opening to see that side of it. So that's what I mean when I say, like, I've been doing a lot but nothing at all, because we've been working on a couple multifamilies, larger multifamilies, and that's just a whole different ball game when you're trying to work. But it's like the return is so much larger, and it's pretty much the same amount of work. But as your first multifamily, it's a lot more difficult to get into because it's like the cool kids club, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to show that you have proof that you're doing it, you've done it before you do the thing, in order to do the thing, but you can't do the thing before you've done the thing.
Yeah.
So getting really creative on all of that and finding the right people to, like, say, put a stamp on our project and go, yeah, I'm part of this deal, or get creative with the sellers and say, hey, let us join your LLC, or and just coming up with different solutions. And that's what we've been spending a lot of our time on for a couple deals. And then also we are in the I'm focusing on buying businesses to get some cash flow. That's going to allow us to do a lot more with. The mindset being, you get cash flow from these businesses and you use that cash flow to buy properties, right? So you've got this day one
Wow.
acquisition and someone who's a powerhouse like my partner. And I'm just going out there finding the things and finding the people to bring in and making those connections. And so that's been most of what we've been doing, or I've been doing. And it's been a really great 3 months. I was kind of off of the wagon of doing all the things on social media and like in the background. And we can talk about that and a little bit about mindset on where I was to where I am now. But it was a good learning experience. And now I'm talking about all the things that I didn't know about 3 months ago. And I sound like I know what I'm talking about because I do. Just 3 months figuring it all out.
Yeah.
That's been a really great experience to be working with someone as an operator like that. And that's our main things right now.
Yeah.
And just running network to net worth, the community that you know of as well. And that's been a big,
Yes.
big
Speaking
thing that we
of,
do.
watch, I just did this. Wait, bam! Look
There
at
it
that.
is. Yeah, so I run a Facebook group called Network to Net Worth. We basically have about 1,000 people in this group. We would love for anyone to join. We do a lot of networking with each other. Obviously, it's in the name. It allows you to talk about deals, get people who have the things like Nathaniel's got his weekly call. What's that called now?
Helping
What's
Hands
the
Hour.
Helping Hands Hour, right? So it's a
Yeah.
very similar concept. You come in here and you say, hey, I need this, and people can help you, or you just want to talk about a deal that you're working on and people can just give input or just say high five or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's a great community. We're focusing a lot on helping you build a business. We have a weekly Zoom meeting on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you're able to come, we would love to have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
That
I
will
had to
be
take the
linked
plug.
in the show notes. Oh no, you're good. I like it. And thank you for plugging Helping Hands Hour too.
Yeah.
It's been a cool little adventure that I've gone on, being able to kind of give back to people, especially when you haven't done a deal yet, or you're kind of looking for that second, third, getting momentum. You just come in and talk shop essentially and ask questions, and people are realizing that when they raise their hand, it's providing value to everybody else that's there, because a lot of us are going through the same kind of issues, right? I wanted to kind of unpack, because you mentioned like a catch-22 that you have figured out how to kind of navigate, or are still figuring out how to navigate, is that like you're in the cool club with the multifamily thing. And it reminds me of when I was in engineering school and you're starting to look at job applications and things like that. They're like, well, you need 3 years of experience. Well, how the heck am I supposed to get 3 years of experience, like, if you won't give me a job to get the experience? Like this little catch-22 thing. So, and then there's that going on. And then you mentioned the fact that these are bigger deals that you're getting into. So I can maybe just do one of these big projects per year, and I'm set for the year. And then I can start looking at the next one. And then I love the chief people person. It kind of, like you said, it gives a better spin on things, and something that which I want to get into is your experience at Unleash and Invest. Amber talked about is measuring your success in your people, right?
Yes.
So you're building a team, and your job as their leader is to build these people up and put them in the right positions and empower them and give them all the tools that they need so they can be successful and grow. And I've thought of this recently over the past few months is, Pace, for all of you that are familiar with Pace Morby out there, has this huge umbrella of goals that he's created and is going after. And he's created this community, the large community of over 100,000 people, and the smaller sub-2 community of like 15,000 now. And we all fit under his umbrella. And our jobs are to create goals as big as we can under his umbrella, and maybe beyond, and let the people around us create their goals underneath our umbrella. And it kind of helped me realize, or visualize how other people's goals fit into our bigger goals, and how we're able to bring people into our fold. So I love that you're kind of doing that.
Yeah,
Would
I
you
love it.
like to pivot to the Unleash and Invest?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on that
Oh
visualization of
yeah,
the umbrellas, right? It's
yeah,
like it's a really great way to look at it because, you know, I kind of look at it as, yes, the umbrella can protect you, but also without the rain of the
mhm,
of the goals or of what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
Your goals can support people below you's goals. Your goals can also support people above you, right?
Mm.
Because like it's a two-way street in multiple ways, and the impact that you're making on people by being in that role and providing that help and that assistance, that value, by doing that, you're allowing everyone else to thrive and get to where they're trying to get to. And that's,
Yeah.
to me, that's huge, right? Because, as much as we're like, I don't know what to offer. I don't know what I have to give. A lot of people are in that mindset, especially if you're new to being an investor or being an entrepreneur. It's like, well, how am I supposed to help people, right? Even if you're someone who has such amazing experience doing all these things, there's the mindset of where's my value? Like, how am I going to get to my goals? Never mind help this person with their goals below me.
Yeah.
Like, and that's how, right? You help those people because that umbrella is also a stepping stone for you in a different way, right? If you kind of look at it as a solid surface, right? You can step on that umbrella to help, right? Not step on them, but like it's a building
Yeah.
block. And
Yeah.
by helping other people, and then the other way around, the umbrella lifts you up with, by the air coming underneath it, your umbrella lifts those people up, and so on and so forth. So the analogy is really cool.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I don't know. It just popped into my head sometime.
Great.
And then, going back to your Facebook group, which is still linked on the bottom, I'm gonna get rid of it. I like seeing the Shane. How do I do it? There we go. Ah,
There you go.
That's a great place for you to come in and start kind of meeting other people and seeing what their goals are and how you can plug in. And everybody, we all started at zero, right? Whether you just joined sub 2 with zero experience, or you're just coming in, you're hearing about real estate, and you have zero experience doing real estate. We all started there, right? We don't come out of the womb going, I know how to buy houses and I know how to network and all those things. We all
You
got to
didn't?
learn. So well, a
Weird.
little bit in a sense, yeah. The ether kind of, yeah.
Either, yes.
Yeah.
True. So we can go down that rabbit hole if you want to.
Yeah, no. Let's keep focusing on the all the Shane amazing stuff that, well, yeah, that's a, oh boy, now you got me. Yeah, now you got my gears turning in there.
Yep.
I definitely wanted to talk to you about the Unleash and Invest, because that was the first time we met in person. We've talked a lot over the past however long, but being able to look you in the face in reality and go, dude, give you a big hug, and multiple hugs over the course of the few days, and just rub elbows and actually have quality time together was amazing. And you were a speaker at that. You did a couple different talks, one by yourself or two by yourself, and joint with Amber. And I wanted to kind of see how, I know you've got a teaching background, so talking in front of people is maybe not the most difficult thing. You're somewhat accustomed to it at this point, but like, how did you deal with getting up there, having a prepared thing? Yours was pretty personal the second day when you were talking about your background, and you were very vulnerable up there. How did you navigate that? Any nerves that you had? What kind of tips and things did you do there?
So that's a great question. And I have to bring it back a little further than just the day of, because leading up to getting on the plane to come to Vegas, my mindset wasn't in the state that you saw me when I was at that event. My mindset for the past 3 months was, I'm doing the hard things in the business to make the business work. And I felt like I wasn't doing all the things that give me joy and the things that I thrive at, right? Because I had to balance the two, because you got to do the hard work, right? It has to happen. So doing all of this stuff, the talking to people or in front of people, like we're doing it right now. I don't know how many people are in the crowd, but how many people are going to watch this, but technically we're talking in front of a whole bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
And so the way that we prepare for things and the way that we set ourselves up is, when I came on the plane coming to Vegas, I was not in the right mindset. I'm like, I'm not sure why I'm even going to this event. Like, why does someone want to listen to me? Right? Because I wasn't actively doing things that I thought was valuable, right? We talked about that just a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
And so when I sat on that plane and I sat down next to this guy, Chris, and we started talking about, he was a firefighter and he was gone through some PTSD from that. And he had to go through different types of therapies and EMDR. And we just started talking about and being vulnerable with the guy next to me for 6 hours on this plane. And I thought I was going to just take a nap for 6 hours, because I was like, I gotta sleep. It's 2 a.m. when I left my house, and now it's 6 o'clock and I'm on my plane. and I'm going to be busy all week in Vegas. So I'm going to be up all night. So I spoke to this guy and I spent 6 hours talking to someone, and it was the exact thing I needed. Right.
Mm.
And it's amazing when you put yourself outside your comfort zone and push yourself to the limits of like what you are. I mean, I know I'm capable of a lot of things. I know you throw me in the fire, I'll do it. When I got to Vegas, I was a different person from being on that plane. When I got into the room with all of you, and the amount of energy and the amount of love and the amount of, community in the Unleash and Invest community, and the Growth Code community, like when I was there, that totally changed my mindset, right? I didn't even have my speech prepared. I kind of knew a vague idea of what I was going to talk about, but I spent the first day and a half finishing up that speech and tweaking it and modifying it, and like seeing Chris James up there talking about vulnerability himself. I'm like, all right, cool. There's some overlap, but let's not overlap too much, right? Tweaking this, tweaking that. And for preparing for something like that, you mentioned I have a teaching background, and I've taught, unofficially at summer camp since I was 16. So I've been in front of people quite a bit. But in the sense of preparing for something like that, it brings me back to the course I took in college, and I was at a community college, and it was the speech course, right? You had to give speeches in class.
Yeah.
And it was one of those courses that, like, I killed it, because the first day, what the guy said to us was, how many of you have ever stood in line to go on a roller coaster? And, 90% of us raised our hand. All right, cool. That feeling of excitement, and you're ready to go on this roller coaster, but it's going to be like throwing you around. You have no control, and you're terrified, and you got this like weird thing going on, but you're excited, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you come up to get in line and you're the next person up on stage up here, think about the same thing. Think that anxiety you're perceiving, it's the same feeling you have when you're waiting in line for that roller coaster. You're next in line to get on the front of the roller coaster, or the back, depending on which, how exciting or scary each one is.
Yeah.
And that made all the difference for me. The voice trembling that's usually there. It's like, well, it sometimes happens, but at the same time, I knew that this community was the love that was being portrayed throughout it, and the value that was being given by the other speakers, and the reception of everyone else about that. It totally changed the way that I thought, but it also really, really helps with the mindset, is thinking about, this is just another thing. This is just another exciting thing. And I did talk about that during my speech as well, about how your body's emotions and feelings completely change the way that your brain perceives something.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't anybody that was going to go boo.
And if there was, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's something wrong going on in their brain, not mine. Right? Like, I'm being vulnerable, I'm being myself, I'm portraying. If I was talking about something that I didn't know about, or I was pretending, then I'd be nervous as all hell. Right? But if I'm true to myself, and I'm true to my values and what I want to talk about and how I want to help people, it doesn't matter. Right?
Right.
And I think if people can get that in their brains, then there's a different mindset behind it.
Yeah. It's easy to connect with somebody that's being authentic and being their true selves, right?
Absolutely.
We talked before, a lot of people in our community, our network, know me as the shirtless guy, right? And that I'm hot, I'm sweating right now, but I was.
Well, you have flannel on. I understand.
Yeah, it's cotton. It's cotton.
What's that?
Yeah. I like to be able to, when I'm clothed, be able to roll my sleeves down and go outside and do yard work if that was the case. Or I put a pair of jeans on or shorts, right? And I can just walk out the door. I can be out the door in a minute. And people are always like, well, why would you wear long sleeves? It's 98 degrees outside. But and it's weird, but in a survival situation, you want the long sleeves, because I want to be able to protect my body from the elements, right? And so, I don't know, just, sorry, I got a little.
No, you're good. I mean, you're talking about going from one end of the spectrum to the opposite end, right? Like no shirt, full sleeves, right? I'm waiting for the hood and everything else to come on too.
No Jesse in Alaska up there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, and right, like we did talk about this offline. Like, your brand, right, is about not having your shirt on, right? And that might come across to some people in one way. My mohawk might come across someone another way. Me being too vulnerable might come across to someone as well, right? So it's that balance and trying to find the balance that works for people. We talked about I think the most impactful thing for me at that event in terms of conversation was the conversation about different personalities, right? And how you have to step into the role to talk to the people in a certain way and to get on the same page as them to communicate the same way. And that was a really interesting, I don't know how you felt about that, but that was a really phenomenal concept. And just for anyone watching, it's, there's 4 core personalities in let's call it in business, but in life in general. You've got the controller who needs everything to be their way and they've got to make sure it happens or else it's like mayhem, right? And then you've got the analyzer who needs to know every detail before they even make a decision. So they might take like an hour to decide unless they have everything they need. And then you have the promoter, which is someone like you who's just energized and like wants to go and let's make it happen and wants the party to be here. And then you've got the supporter role who can help other people get to where they need to be by providing that open space to give them that space to do it. And in order to be successful, you need to be able to navigate all 4 of those. And that whole event for me was the biggest impact for me. That along with the fact that I was providing value and totally changed my mindset. Like I've turned the switch back on and I needed that. So that event was a lot more impactful than I think for me. It was impactful for a lot of people, but just being there was really impactful for me.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, that's awesome. It goes to show you that, when you're out there touching other people's lives, and you definitely did at that point, the other people may not realize how much value that you're getting out of that. I didn't even think of that, right? That, it's it's shifting your mindset and it's shifting the way you're looking at other things and relationships and stuff. I have a guess as to which one you are. Which one are you?
You tell me.
I was thinking supporter. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they have the grid and there's like what position you could be in, right? They like A, B, C, D in each quadrant. I'm very close to the center because I can step into any role as necessary. As a teacher, I always had to, right? You talk to the knucklehead over here who's going to get in your face. You talk to this kid over here who needs that. Like, so I have that role, but yeah, definitely the supporter role. But it made me realize that, people are, even in that role, I can do a lot of good and also run a business, right? Because I can understand all the pieces of the puzzle, while someone who's in a very extreme control role might not understand a supporter, right? So it's pretty cool to see like someone like Kevin who ran the event, Kevin Showweiler. He's a supporter also, and you can see that, but you can also see that he's a high achieving person. It's like, oh, so I can do this and not have to be a controller and run the whole show and do everything do everything that's against my values, right? In a way that I don't want to, but I have to be able to step into those positions. So.
And he did at one point. Stepped into the controller. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. That's what a controller looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to, your team building, right? And so is that something that now that you've seen this, right? Is this something that you're looking for as you're bringing new people on? Are you looking for analyzers and controllers? And I'm doing this as my, like the faux grid. You might have gotten that, but the people out there in Wonderland, you're looking for the promoter and the analyzer and the controllers. Is that a thing for you, or like, oh, no, I know that I can be the controller?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to quantify that in a overall scale, right? Because as you're hiring for different things, you're figuring out what you need. And even if someone is in that controller position, it's like, cool, you're the controller of what you control, not of this overall business, right? So as long as there's that delineation and they can also step into other roles, then it's like, cool, you're a great operations person. Do it, right? Like you'll be able to just move this thing forward. You're a controller and analyzer. Sweet, let's go. Right? Because they'll take action and they'll analyze the right way and fast in order to take that action, right? Like Amber McCullum, she's very close to that. She's a controller, analyzer, controller. In my opinion, she's also a promoter, right? She can step into that role and she can step into the supporting role. That's a big piece of her too. So it's an interesting thing to see. Not everyone's just a single thing. It's just, how fast do they move? That means there's a lot of controller, and how much do they analyze and how good are they at it? It's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
as we're growing the team, right? And that doesn't mean that they're on our team. It might just mean we're partnering with them and we're bringing them on and we're hiring them, right? They might not be officially on the team, but they might be a piece of it, but we consider them on the team, right? Because it's like, hey, we need this to be done. How can I support you? And I think, I can go down that rabbit hole of like running a business and what your job is as the boss or as the manager, right? It's not to tell people what to do. It's to have them tell you so you can support them and then give them some guidance, right? And I think that's a misconstrued idea in a lot of people's minds, especially those who are not running a business right now.
Right. Yeah.
Just like those of us or people who are not a landlord, they see them as the evil warlord, right? Or whatever it is. And until you step in the role and realize that no, your goal is to support and value the people that are bringing you the money, right?
Yeah.
That's really what it's
Yeah,
about.
the last thing I want to do is be kicking people out of houses and putting them on the street. Like, yeah, that's not it. I want to figure out how to make it so they can stay in this house and how they love the house and treat it as their own, right? And it kind of something you said a couple times there just reminded me of we delegate tasks and we delegate results, not tasks. Right? I don't want to be the guy that's like, do this, do this, do this, do this. No, this is what we're looking for. We've all agreed on this. That's why you're here. It's because we agreed this is where we're trying to go. I brought you in because you have these skills and abilities and things that are complementary to what we have going on, and we want to empower you to do that. I don't want to be telling you this is how you should go about it. Sometimes I do say, hey, look, this is how I was doing it. Just maybe give you ideas of how we were doing it before, but if you see a better way or you already know a better way, that's why you're here, right? I want you to have ownership of your role. And it's funny you mentioned the flight. I had it was an hour long video that I watched over the 4.5 hours in between dealing with the kids and stuff. But it was a Jocko Willink's, like a master class. They just happened to have it on the plane. So he was talking about everybody thinks that as a military leader, your job is just to be like yelling at people all the time and telling them exactly what to do. But that's not really the case, right? We're empowering these people around us. So I love that you're doing that. What is your team outside of your partner? I know that you brought an operations manager type role on, I think, recently.
Yes, that is my partner. We are also bringing on an operations person once we do different projects, right? So it's going to be business by business based. So we have someone who we've hired, right? As they run their own business and we brought them on in that way. So we do have someone like that, which is phenomenal, right? They're helping us with acquisition of some businesses and they're going to operate the actual business itself. And so it's the same thing. It's like, what do you need from us? How can we support you? How can we move things forward with you? Right. And like, we'll do the grunt work, whatever we got to do. Like we'll do the grunt work and we'll come in here and we'll just make sure the things are in place that need to be in place in order to make sure you thrive. And so vetting them is currently what we're doing right now. We have like a JV type situation where we're making sure we're a good fit and we're looking for other people as we grow. Like, okay, this person's going to run the multifamily over here and do the property management. That's an operator, right? And we're going to bring someone else over here to run these businesses or this property or whatever it is. So trying to find those people, it's really about just aligning, right? Making sure the alignment's there, making sure they know what they're doing. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
Pretty funny.
We when we were going through the operations manager hiring process, our first was just like, hey, do we connect? Does your goals and where you're trying to get to within the next year, 3, 5 years make sense for where we're going, right? If you want to own your own business, you want to run your own business, well, it doesn't really make sense for you to come in. It doesn't make sense for us, at least. Maybe it makes sense for you. You're going to learn how to run a business, but it doesn't make sense for us because we don't want to part ways. We want to be with you for a long time. And so how are you attracting the right people to you?
That's a great question. I mean, that's the thing, right? We can talk about the ethos and all the bigger like picture stuff about, the world and the universe and all that fun stuff, and get into that mindset side of things. But that's really what it's about. It's about being like you are, right? You're authentic to who you are, and you're vulnerable with what concerns you have. You're open to receive feedback. You're willing to learn, and that's all we're doing is we're making sure that there's those pieces of the puzzle that if we meet up with someone and they're just talking about buying a Bugatti and dropping money everywhere, it's like it's not who I want to be around, right? But if I'm going to talk to someone like you, Nathaniel, and you're like, oh, you have a homestead, or you're doing this, you're trying to work with your children, and you want to do homeschooling or whatever, like those are the kind of people I want to align with. Oh, you like travel, you like there's certain pieces where if you're not getting into the right mindset or the role that, or not being willing to share that, then it's not worth the conversation, right? Like finding Marley was a lot of work. Yeah. I talked about this last night in my Zoom. I know I got in front of at least 1,000 people, maybe 2,000 people in order for them to see what I was doing. But I was dropping into different things, and like it's a volume game still, right? No matter how aligned you might think you are, just from like, oh, this person's perfect, we're best friends, and this, and like we both want to do this thing. Great. Yeah. But where are the values? Where are the alignment? Where's the exact alignment there? Because you can become very good friends with people by doing business with them, right? And find that alignment. But if that alignment's not there, if I don't want you in my backyard having a barbecue, I really don't want to work with you. Yeah. No joke. Like I don't want to be in bed with you in business. It's just not it's not my thing.
Yeah. That's funny. This is going kind of around the Unleash and Invest event, is since bringing our operations manager on, we weren't getting quite the traction that we were hoping we were getting, right? And this is maybe contrary to what people saw, because we actually closed on a deal while we were at the event. But a concern of mine was, man, is Joanna, our operations manager, going to want to stay on with us? Because we had a 90-day plan together, and we set these goals in those 90 days, and we were a little bit off from them. And I'm like, it's a concern of mine. But then thinking about, well, no, her and Brittany have a really good relationship. They're on the phone every day. They're talking about deals they're looking at. They're talking about other things as well, like raising your kids and things like that. Like, man, today was a tough day. I'm not going to say his name because he's standing right over there, and I don't want to distract him, but he's not listening today, or this is going on, right? And being able to kind of align in those ways. So, being able to connect with that, it's what's really growing you for the future too. So I love that you mentioned that, because it's something that I've been thinking about now. We're kind of getting into the second half of this, and I know we both have calls that we need to hop on. So I want to make sure, like, you mentioned the business acquisitions. You mentioned you're doing a lot of multifamily kind of deal hunting and deal finding and underwriting, things like that. What does the next 60, 90 days and maybe end of 2024 look like? What are those goals? And what do you need to kind of put in place to get you there? I'm just going to unload on you right now. What hurdles do you see that you're going to need to overcome? And then I'm going to shut up.
No, this is a beautiful question, because it's something that we've been, there's a hurdle every single day, right? So it's pretty funny that you asked that, because it's just there's something new. Like, oh, we thought we had this, now we have to go find the thing. And for us, it's mostly, so I guess I'll just go to 30, 69. So 30 days within. We're hoping by the end of this week. We've been negotiating this large multifamily for quite a while. We're kind of the only ones in the running, and which is nice, but it's been fun trying to figure all this out. So we're hoping we'll have some version of an acceptance of an LOI this week. So that's we're going back and forth on this LOI. So hopefully that'll work out. Nice. It will. We'll get it either by Friday or the next day, but we're sending that back today. So that should be really exciting. And after that, we're working towards acquiring businesses as well. So when you look at a large multifamily and you look at businesses, it's literally just acquiring a business as a large multifamily, because you have teams in place and all the pieces of the puzzle, and you have your clients, but they're already built in, right, as a large multifamily, versus a smaller one, which we have done those, right? We've worked on those deals, and it just feels like the same amount of energy is put into those smaller deals as it is for this bigger deal. So we're like, okay, well, let's do this first, and then we can go back and build a team to do that. And now that we have the cash flow, just things are taken care of. Then we can have the fun doing the little stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's the 30-day. Hopefully, the plan is to be approaching closing. We're probably going to be more than 30 days just because of the way the funding works. But that's that, and then also having 2 businesses under contract as well. That's the other piece of the puzzle. 90 days, we will be operating the large multifamily as well as a couple of businesses. Again, bringing on team members, right? Like I said, we're working on bringing operations people on, and probably going to start a property management company to manage this business or this multifamily, and then bring on a team to operate that. So finding the people to put in place to build out the systems is where we're at in the next 90 days. The hurdles are always, money and deals, right? It's always the hurdles.
Yeah.
And, I don't look at time as being a hurdle as much anymore. It's a factor, but it's just always there. And yeah, just finding the right people that we want to partner with. So, doing any of these deals, it's like, if we need an influx of cash, cool. Let's find the people that want to be part of the deal. Let's push the people in the direction that we need to be pushed, or to push them. I think that's the main thing. Just the 30, 60, 90 is align exactly to what you asked, but pretty close to what I just mentioned.
No, yeah, and I asked like 18 questions.
Yeah, that's good. I hope I hit 19 of them. So
yeah, there you go. Yeah, added a couple. You saw where I was going, right? So when you're looking for people to, say manage the business or manage the multifamily, where are you typically going? Is it like a LinkedIn and Indeed? Are you going to Sub2?
It's a combination, right? It's about who knows who, really. LinkedIn's a great way to find that because you've got your first, second, and third connection type situation. And we've been connected to some really big rock star property managers who were looking to be part of a business, and we just weren't ready to pull them on, and they went and did something else. But I said, hey, don't fully go all in on that. Like, we need someone to take over the property management here, right? At some point. So there's a combination, and it's really about the network, right? So, for instance, buying businesses, people who are finding these deals and are negotiating them, especially for seller finance or any type of creative portion. Cool, you do that. We'll bring, and if you can operate, or if you have someone on your team that can operate, we'll bring the money, and we'll bring the experience on locking this deal down. And then you can go ahead and we'll bring you on as operations, and then we'll just make sure that everyone's on the same page. So there's a lot of ways to partner, while also a lot of ways to just find the right people. Like, I'm definitely done. We'll definitely use Indeed at some point. But I've done the find someone who's new and teach them thing. And I know you brought on an operator that you had to teach a little bit, but they knew how to operate, right?
Yeah.
And I've done that before, right? Like, I'll learn as I go. I was like, no, I want you to know what you're doing. I'm gonna go out of my way to spend the time learning how to find the person versus spend the time learning how to fire the person.
Yeah. And I thought too, and I just had a conversation with Josh Sherrill, who was at the Unleash Invest event yesterday, that he's thinking, okay, I want to make sure I hire somebody by I forget what his date was, the end of next week. And I'm like, well, if you were to push that back 1 week and fill your calendar for this coming week with another 15 or 20 first round interviews and really solidify the few that you think are the right fit, like, does that make a difference for you? Because I see it as, if I spend a week now making sure that I bring the right person in, it saves me 90 days of headache, and then another 3 weeks right down the line. I want to make sure that I bring the right person in right now. That way I don't have that, like, having to figure out how to fire them, having to figure out how to have that difficult conversation. I think you answered this question. I wrote it down here. As far as the finding the businesses go, it sounds like you're almost going through wholesalers in a sense. Is that?
Yeah, a lot of them right now are through brokers.
Okay.
And just a statistic on businesses, it's only 1 in 12 businesses that are for sale close. Well, only 1 in 12 actually sell, which is crazy because that's so much on the table with all these small businesses that are just closing down, right? And we have a specific buy box on how we're doing that. And we're also training people on how to find these deals, right? Similar to like a bird dog or someone who wants to be a wholesaler for these deals. I'll pay them a fee all day, any day, right? And so brokers currently do that. It's like direct to agent, right? You're going to a broker, you're signing NDAs, you're doing this, that, the other thing, and then you get to look at the paperwork, right?
Okay.
So finding people who want to go and make a commission, or not, I won't say commission, want to make an assignment fee on a deal by locking something down or getting it to the table and bringing us in, like I'll happily pay them all day, any day to do that. And I'll happily train them to do that as well. And that's part of what we're working on doing for and with people, like that umbrella, right? Provide that value so they can learn, so they can make some money, learn a little bit about the industry, and then cool, let's get you. And when you said you don't want someone leaving, I've got this, I've got the mixed feelings about that in a sense, if that makes sense, right?
Okay.
Like I don't want people leaving, but I also want them to grow enough to have the option of being able to thrive.
Yeah.
Right. So there is that balance, right? Like for you might find that your operations person is so phenomenal that you're going to bring them in on the business because they're just doing it all, right? And they might be part owner and then get equity and everything because they're just such a high flyer because that's what they want, or else they're going to have to leave, right?
Right.
I'd rather do that to make sure, but also vet them for the 90 days plus a year of doing stuff or however long it takes to really understand, make sure our values are aligned and things like that. So that goes the same way with anyone who's finding deals, right? I'll pay someone all day, any day to find deals or give them a small chunk of the deal in the end if it's worth that effort, right? So
yeah, it's fun. I don't say it probably enough to the wholesalers, but if you're asking for $1 million for your wholesale fee and the deal works for us, paying you $1 million, I'll pay you $1 million every day.
Yeah,
I haven't seen $1 million assignment fee yet, but
right. They're out there. They're out there.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, for the $100 million apartment complexes. Yeah, I appreciate that because a lot of the things you're saying you're putting the thoughts and feelings that I have, and I think as well there's some people in the chat right now that are kind of feeling the same way. You're putting words to them, right? And so I knew that having you on was going to be a blessing that way. Are there any specific businesses that you're kind of looking for right now?
So it's honestly the main thing that we're looking for is cash flow, right? It's we're not really married to any business. We do want to stay away from certain ones. But we're mainly focusing on, there's about 4 industries. So anything construction or home services is number one. Manufacturing is another one. Any type of medical outpatient services or transportation services for that world, that's another one. And then pretty much SaaS companies are another one. So software as a service, software as a service, SaaS. So like this software we're on right now is StreamYard, right? That's a SaaS, right? It's a piece of software that is servicing people that has revenue stream. So anything that's cash flowing or has an EBITDA of $1 million or more is looking at. EBITDA being, I don't know the acronym exactly, but it's basically is what they look at after your revenue and some of your expenses are paid. It's kind of like your net before you pay your mortgage, essentially, or your debts.
And so I know that word, but that's acronym.
Yeah, there's like 4. Yeah, there's like 4 versions of it. Like there's EBITDA and there's EBITDA and there's EBITDA. Like there's extra letters thrown in depending on what you're talking about, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, navigating that. Well, you're a person that likes to learn, right, and dive deep into stuff. So I imagine that's been kind of exciting for you going into a new adventure rabbit hole kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna not use the word rabbit hole because it's not, right. When you do it from I used to do that a lot. Like I actually did that the other day on something. I'm like, what am I doing? Stop. Like I had to stop myself from doing it because I was like, this is exciting and this is what I love doing, but wait, that's not moving me towards the goal. I'll do that after when I get to this, this step. But yeah, so, learning about businesses, and I implore everyone to really understand how businesses work. Like, you have a business, you're running a business. You're not like, you need to look at it from a different point of view than just, I'm going to buy and sell houses, or I'm going to buy houses and rent them out. That's not all you're doing. Like, you
Yeah.
have you have a marketing campaign. You're networking to Nathaniel. That's a piece of your business. That's your brand, right?
Mm.
You've got, your staff, people you work for. You've got your deal flow. You've got your revenue. You've got your net. You've got your gross. Like, it's so much more than just, and you can do a lot of damage just buying and doing things, right? So don't take this the wrong way, right? But it is like running a business, and which is what every entrepreneur or investor or real estate investor is doing. You need to understand like what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how to optimize some things. And that might mean bringing on an operations person, so you're not running the treadmill, like I
Yeah.
know that you and I have had conversations about in the past, right? It's just like, I'm not sure if I want to expand because I don't have the time, because I want to, I'm not going to double my volume of things by spending double the time. Just, I don't
Right.
have double the time, right? Like,
Yeah.
so what big picture 10x goal am I aiming for? And if I only get to 5x, am I going to be upset? No. Like,
Right.
right.
Yeah. That's what it just. I think I'll bet a butcher it, Jesse. So if you're listening out there, he's like, if you shoot for the moon or the shoot for the stars, you end up on the moon, right? Most people are just shooting for this little target down here, and we're hitting that target all day, rather than setting our sights for something way beyond where we think we can get to, and then ending up getting to getting way up there. And
Yeah.
you mentioned it earlier about the multifamily. You realize that it's taking about the same amount of time for me to go through the process with, you didn't put any numbers on it, but just let's say 150 units as it is to do a 20 unit. Why not just do the 150 units? Right? I'm figuring out all that the mechanics of it are the same, and putting the pieces in place are the same. Well, let's just go for the big one then. Right?
Mhm.
So I love that. And I'd love to keep going on this, but I wanted to, because you've got a lot of things going on, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time here. As a husband and as a father, how are you managing all these, for lack of a better word, hats that you're putting on?
It's a really good question. First off, I want to thank you for always bringing that factor into your networking calls and meetings, and just everything you create, right? Like, when you and I first started talking, that was what we connected on, right? You had your kid on the first call we were on. I
Yeah,
had my daughter, and like, we were just goofing off and talking about life and family, right?
yeah,
That's such a big factor of all of this. And if you're ignoring that side of it, you're taking away from what you could be doing. And I had a call with a really good person the other day about, you know, the person is super motivated and directive on their business, and they want to grow it, and that's all they think about all the time. And we had this call, and I opened up some space, and that person said that, I want to be the best version of myself. I don't want to end up at the pearly gates and seeing myself that I could have been, right? And so they think about the business as that version of themselves, right? And that's true, right? You're pushing yourself, but they also spent 5 hours with their kids the day before doing some amazing stuff. And they were like, I haven't done that in years. And
mm,
it was amazing, right? And I was like, okay, well, is that, as a father, right? You're trying to build this legacy for your kids. Does that piece of the puzzle, should that be built in to what you're doing, so you can actually truly be there for them?
yeah,
And we've talked about, and that hit them hard, right? That was like, oh yeah, I didn't think of it that way. That version of me is that's also a piece of it, right? Was I that version, right? And there's a goal to get to a level, and so the beautiful part about it is, you know, being a father and a husband. It's hard, right?
mm,
Like, no matter how you cut the pie, right? If you're working a W-2 and you're coming home and you're just floundering because, like, now you have no time to do anything, like if you have projects that you have to finish or want to finish.
yeah,
I know people who have the worst household in the world, but their family is beautiful,
mm,
right? They're
yeah,
so connected, they're so in touch with themselves and like who they are, and yet their household's a mess, right? but it's because they choose to spend the time a certain way, and they don't have the
Yeah.
extra money to make sure all the other stuff's taken care of. And so balancing all of that out, it really helps to have a partner who has the same values,
Mm.
right? And I'm talking both business partner and partner in terms of spouse or whatever.
Yeah.
So Marley and I have a really here's a great story that I take to heart. She went to Austin with her mother and her 4 kids or 5, 4 kids at the time. And they went to Austin to go to a museum, a dinosaur museum. And she's like, all right, you're taking care of this, like, and make sure it's good. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Like, you're good. Go have fun. So she came back and she said, thank you. I was like, for what? She's like, this is the first day in 15 years of my life that I had a day off, an actual true day off, like not even weekends. Like, she's always answering emails. She was always doing something, putting out fires. It was the first actual day that she could hand off the business and be a mom, be a parent, be a spouse, a daughter with her mother. And so that really helps, that balance. There'll be days where I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, I've got, we didn't get up until 9 this morning because my daughter stayed up till 4. And you cool if we push the meeting 20 minutes? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's why we're in business together, because we.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I got this until you're ready, right?
Yeah. I love that.
So that balance is there, and also carving out the time, right? Like my wife and I, and we've, right now, normally at 12 o'clock, we have our meeting daily. And I think we talked about that in the past, and also carving out days. Like this past Sunday was probably the most jam-packed day I've had in a very long time, but very intentional. Right? We went in the morning, we went and picked Nanking cherries at a friend's house and brought it home so that my wife can make jam out of it, or jelly. And then after we finished that, we quickly packed up and went to the lake with the beach and hung out on the beach, had a barbecue with some friends. And immediately after that, we went to volleyball, which is we call farm ball, back in the and like we just had this back-to-back day, and we finished the day and we were exhausted, but we looked at each other like, why don't we do this more? Like, why don't we cultivate that? And so being intentional is really how I get through that. I just really feel that a lot of people, when they're in business mode, they forget that they're doing it for a reason. And if you don't make the time now, when are you?
Right. Yeah. I think that I spent all this time building this multi-million-dollar business, and it took me 15, 20 years. And then 20 years from now, my kids don't even know me. Like, oh, what was the point?
Yeah.
Right. This is what I'm here for.
Yes.
Right. So I love that. We're really coming up on it now. Any, first off, I have it linked down here. What's the preferred way for people to kind of connect with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So probably the best way is through Facebook. The other 3 methods, I don't really get on too much.
Okay.
But yeah, it would be Facebook. That's my at Shane Eddie Evans, or just / Shane Eddie Evans would be the easiest way there.
Yeah.
And connect through there. Sometimes I don't see it, so I apologize, because it's in that little secret mode of Messenger where it's like, oh, hey, this person you don't know, but we're going to keep the spam away. So sometimes I don't see it, so I apologize if I don't get to you right away. But yeah, that's probably the easiest way. But if you have any deals you need help with, or things you want help, talking about and figuring out how to make something move forward, I'd love to help out. Or if you want someone to partner on some businesses or large multifamilies, I'd be all about that.
Like, yeah. And those will all be, again, Facebook is probably the best one, but it'll be linked in the show notes there, so you can just go click on it. It'll take you right to them. Any books that you're reading right now or have read in the past that have really changed your mindset, your business acumen, anything like that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking, because I just finished a couple and I was recommending to a couple of friends. So I'm in the middle of reading 2 books right now. Ready, Fire, Aim.
Okay.
That's a really great one. It talks about just starting and doing it, and then you figure out how to do it later.
Yeah.
And then the book Influence. It's the psychology of psychology of persuasion. That one is a phenomenal book, and just talks about how the brain works and how to phrase things to get people's minds to say yes to stuff, or not to want to know more. But there's a bunch of books. But yeah, I mean, 10x is easier than 2x is by far one of the biggest ones. But I can go on a list. But those are the ones I'm reading right now, and I like them a lot.
I appreciate it. Yeah, the Ready Fire Aim. I haven't read it yet. I've heard this. I think that's the first time it's come on the podcast. I wish I've been keeping a list of the books. I wish I had kept a tally of how many times each book comes up too, because
Yeah.
the Rich Dad Poor Dad is 50% of the time. But
Yep.
the Ready Fire Aim kind of reminds me of we're taking action before we're even ready to do it. Jesse,
Yes.
thank you for that.
Yep. Yep.
I appreciate you being here, brother. I know you
Thank
got a
you.
call to hop on. Thank you, everybody who was here live with us. Anybody, watching in the future, you know how to reach Shane. You know how to reach me as well. It's in the description there. It's been a pleasure, brother.
Thank you. Thank you all for
Later.
having me on. I appreciate it. Are we bumping? Is that what we're doing?
Oh, wait, what? I'm so
I'll do
confused.
both. I'll do both.
How can
Gotta
I
look at
not
the
go
lineup.
that way? Oh. I think we did that in the first one, right? We did the
We did.
thumbnail.
And we
Yeah.
didn't know what was happening.
I failed so bad. No, I did. I just can't. I couldn't figure out. That shouldn't have been easy. Well,
Gotta do
this way
both.
is not working. Go that way, you silly. Yeah. Love you, dude.
You do. Talk soon.